So let's think about how we actually systematize this so that you can easily repeat yourself on your podcast and always have a new way to frame things for your audience. Welcome to Podcast Support, the show where we tackle the questions every podcaster needs answered to grow a successful show. Whether you're just starting out or scaling an existing audience, we break down the roadblocks, share practical strategies, and give you step-by-step answers so you can spend less time guessing and more time building the podcast that you want.
Thank you for contacting Podcast Support.
So I think something that is really intimidating for pretty much every podcaster out there is that every single week you need to have a full conversation about something inside of your niche from episode 0 all the way to 1,000. And that's a lot of conversations that you have to have. And it's intimidating to think about, what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to talk about for that many episodes inside my niche? Are there that many conversations about my niche?
Yeah, I mean, that's super fair. I think this comes down to that you have to get comfortable repeating yourself. Mm-hmm. This is something that is really challenging, but something that if you can get good at, you'll find that it is your superpower. And one of the ways that I want you to think about this is if you don't watch it, whatever, but if you watch sports media, and I would say start watching sports media, I promise this makes sense. Okay, go watch the show First Things First. Super fun. They're crushing it on YouTube right now especially, but go watch them. And if you watch their 3-hour show, what you will notice, and what my fiance pointed out to me when we were driving home from Thanksgiving one time, was they talk about the same thing for 3 hours. They talk about 5 things, and 5 things alone over the course of those 3 hours. They just find fun, new gamified ways to talk about it. The amount of times that they will talk about, is Josh Allen finally better than Patrick Mahomes, is like 30 times within one show, but they'll talk about it in top 10 quarterbacks. They'll talk about it in, these are the top 10 stats you need to know right now. They'll talk about it in that, Bruce Ballard, which is who he thinks are the 5 best players in the league right now. And every single one is just a different way to talk about that one subject. And you know what? I freaking love it. I listen every day. And that's because what we care about more is how you're saying something rather than are you repeating yourself. Mm-hmm. We all know that there's not that much to talk about in the world, but if you can come up with new, intriguing ways to talk about it, then that's where you can really find success. And it's also where a lot of risk lies. I think that a lot of podcasts that don't work, they either try to come up with new ways to talk about things, or they try to come up with totally different topics every single time, and they end up burning themselves out because it's so hard to be completely original every time. And on the flip side is if you talk about things, but you talk about them in the same exact way every time, then it becomes monotonous and people get bored by what you're saying and they tune out. And so those are real risks that exist within podcasting that people fall into the traps of.
So it really comes down to repeating yourself, but framing things in new ways.
No, what I would say is that it's framing things in new ways, but repeating yourself.
Oh, okay. See, when you said it like that, suddenly it made sense to me.
Yeah.
And I think that people get scared about repeating themselves, but definitely the framing is the more important part of it. And also, human brains want to hear the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
If you have something good to say it over and over again because your audience needs to hear it multiple times before it actually resonates with them. So if you have, a really good system for financial management, you don't need to come up with a new system for financial management every episode. Teach the same system every episode in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
And also find different ways to apply it to people's lives. So if you have this system and it's really good for fixing like 17 different aspects of people's lives, like it's really good for your taxes, it's really good for buying cars, it's really good for buying a house, make different episodes about how this system affects each of those different aspects of people's lives, and then go back to the start afterwards and update it for like the new year.
Yeah, Dave Ramsey is like the king of this.
Dave Ramsey's so good at this.
He has his like 3 ideas. And then he has made thousands of episodes of podcasts about it because he has people call in and talk to him about what's going on in their life, which is always like that user generated content is awesome for him. And then, he'll have episodes that are, okay, well, here's how to be able to buy a home in the next 3 years. And it's the same advice as here's how to get out of debt in the next 3 years. Both same exact advice. It's just a different way of thinking about it.
So let's think about how we actually systematize this so that you can easily repeat yourself on your podcast and always have a new way to frame things for your audience. And one really easy place to come at reframing these topics is always, what does my audience want and need at any given moment? So in this episode of my podcast, what does my audience want that I'm going to solve with my core ideas? And the core ideas don't change. Just what your audience wants changes, and then you can use those core ideas to solve your audience wants. So for example, for us, we have our main core topics of what we teach within podcasting, and then we make different episodes about how to use those core techniques to achieve audience goals. So if the audience goal is that we want more views on our podcasts, we use our core teachings and apply it to getting people more views. If it's that we want to sell more ads for our podcast and increase our monetization, we take our core idea and we apply it to how can our core ideas get our audience more monetization and more revenue for their podcasts.
Yeah, for sure. And so if you're running, let's say you're making a business podcast, well, let's narrow that down. Let's say that you're doing a investing podcast. Well, you probably have your main ways that you believe in investing. And so you can then go and you can say, okay, we're making an episode about being in your early 20s, what should you be doing right now? And then that is an episode, and you talk about your main core ways of investing. Then you can also make an episode where it's, okay, you're reaching retirement age, what should you be doing now? And it's pretty much the same ideas, but it's framed through a different thing. And obviously because of the age change, there's going to be differences that you make. It can be the same as you're having a kid, so now here's how you need to be thinking about investing. Literally, you just do this an infinite amount of times and you come up with different ways and make it interesting to yourself. So do have those different scenarios affect you. It should be that there is a difference in it and that there's something interesting for you to talk about. And that comes down, that's the fun part of this. But the repetition part of it is going to be what helps you make this sustainable.
Yeah. And so we have our core idea, our core teachings, and then we take our audience wants and needs and use that as the frame through which we teach our core ideas to our audience through our podcast. I think that's a pretty succinct way to put it.
Yep.
So when you look at the biggest people in the podcasting industry, especially within business and self-help, you see that everybody is actually doing this. Mel Robbins, Dave Ramsey,
Diary of a CEO,
Alex Hormozy, Ryan Serhant, all of these different people are teaching the same things over and over again, reframed through their audience's wants and needs.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it's something that when you are able to create that sustainability, then you can grow it. And also, when you have that sustainability, you can then find new ways to access your audience. You don't have to spend as much time trying to prep episodes because you understand what your talking points are and what your audience wants to get out of the episode. So making sure that you have that engine at the center is really important.
And hopefully after this episode, you're able to suddenly imagine 1,000 episodes down the line, how you're still talking about the same things and repeating yourself 1,000 different ways.
Thanks, guys, so much for listening. Let us know what you're going to be doing to take advantage of what we talked about here. We love to hear about new ways that people are using some of the advice that we're repeatedly talking about. And so we look forward to catching you in the comments.
See you there.
Thank you for contacting podcast support.